Before we dive into tips, techniques, and practical exercises around sex and relationships, I want to start with something foundational, the PEP Talk Model. This is a framework I've created after decades of working with clients who've been navigating sexual shame, religious trauma, and disconnection in their intimate lives. I can't tell you how many times I've heard something like, I understand the concepts, Natasha, and really I'm no longer thinking that what I'm doing or fantasizing about is a sin, but how do I get rid of that fucking shame? Yeah, I get it. I'm still unpacking and deconstructing little remnants of shame that like to pop up from time to time at the most inconvenient times, usually, even though I have long ago landed in a much healthier and sex-positive mindset. So I've come up with my best thinking around this and put it into a model format, which offers you a roadmap of sorts for how to think about, approach, and practice sex in a healthier, more connective way. Whether you're single, partnered, or exploring non-monogamy, the PEP Talk model is here to give you a structure that builds confidence and deepens connection and eradicates shame. Think of it like your new playbook for sex and intimacy, and today I'm going to walk you through what it is, why it works, and how you can start applying it right away. I'm the sex Mormon therapist with the emphasis on X. I'm a certified sex therapist here to help you get the information we never got at church, unlearn the shame we did, and reconnect with your pleasure, because pleasure is not a sin. Make sure to subscribe if you're looking for real talk tips and tricks to better sex and relationships. Now, before I go deeper into PEP Talk, I want to give credit where it's due. My model didn't just come out of thin air. It's influenced by earlier frameworks in the sex therapy field, especially something called the PLISSIT model. PLISSIT is one of the most widely used models in sex therapy. It was developed in the 1970s by Jack Annan for therapists, and the acronym stands for permission, limited information, specific suggestions, and intensive therapy. The idea was that many sexual concerns don't require years of therapy. Sometimes what people need most is just permission to talk about sex, some basic education or information, a few concrete suggestions, and then deeper therapy if needed. So I love the foundation PLISSIT laid, but it is a model for therapists to know how to approach their clients in matters related to sexuality, not for clients themselves. So I wanted to create a framework that felt just as structured but more accessible and usable in people's daily lives. So the PEP Talk model takes that therapeutic wisdom of PLISSIT and translates it into a practical, sex-positive roadmap you can pick up and apply in your own relationships and self-exploration. So why do we need a model for sex? Well, because for most of us, the messages we grew up with weren't models at all. They were rules, restrictions, or outright silence. When I was working with a client raised in purity culture, she told me, I had 1,000 rules about what not to do, but no guidance about what healthy sex even looks like once you're supposed to have it. And I remember nodding because that's how I felt too growing up Mormon. You're taught to avoid, repress, and deny your sexuality. That doesn't give you the tools to build confidence, joy, or connection once you're actually in a relationship. That's where the PEP Talk model can come in. It's not about telling you what to do or how often to do it. A model provides a clear framework that organizes complex feelings and experiences into something understandable and workable. Instead of, I don't know where to even start, clients get a roadmap. Here are the steps. Here are the themes. Here's how we can move forward. So what does PEP Talk stand for? Well, number one, P stands for permission. And this is a super important step. Just giving yourself permission. Permission to talk about sex, permission to think about sex, permission to feel desire, permission to explore, permission to say yes, permission to say no, permission to experience pleasure, permission to advocate for yourself and ask for what you want, permission to fantasize. One of my clients once said, I just didn't realize I could decide that wanting sex was okay. That's how deep the shame went. Once she gave herself permission, it really shifted from duty sex to chosen sex, and that made the world of difference in her life. The E stands for education. The reality is we have not received comprehensive sexual education. Most of us received education when people did not want us to be having sex, so in middle school or in high school, and even those types of education were very reproductivity based, not pleasure based, not relational based. So once you have given yourself permission, the next piece is to educate yourself accurately, comprehensively, shame-free ways. And there are so many resources out there. This knowledge is really critical in understanding ourselves, understanding our partners, and dismantling so many of the myths and misinformation out there that actually contribute to shame. Because without education, people are left with myths, porn scripts, or silence. And I think it's education that empowers us to make informed, healthy decisions about our bodies and how we want to use them. The next P stands for practice. And here's the clincher. I think that practice is where really the rubber hits the road. When we're talking about things like sex, intimacy, communication, these are skills. We don't expect ourselves to play an instrument perfectly the first time we pick it up. Yet so many of us expect sex to just work or to just be organic. The practice piece is where you actually try things out, where you explore what you're wanting and then put it into practice. And that's how we learn. Sometimes it's awkward, like it's awkward to pick up that instrument and put it to your, neck and bow out that first wah, wah of a violin. It usually doesn't sound very good. But once we start practicing and trying things out, that actually helps us get used to things. There was a couple I worked with who laughed, for example, the entire first time they tried a new position. But they kept practicing, and that laughter actually became part of their connection, and they ended up really enjoying the new position that they were practicing. So practice isn't about getting it right. It's about building comfort, confidence, intimacy, getting used to things. Exploration can mean discovering what kinds of touch you like, what fantasies excite you, what boundaries you need, or what relational structures work for you. All of this requires practice. I always like to remind people that in church, they oftentimes told us not to get close to the slippery slope, to stay away from sexual sin. In other words, stay away from the practice of our own sexual development, because if not, we would get desensitized to sin. And now I like to turn that on its head and say, you know what, they were right. The more you do something, it does desensitize you. And that's exactly how we're going to fuck the shame away. We're going to actually fuck it away, because when you do something over and over again, the shame just tends to dissipate. This is why the practice piece of the PEP Talk model is so important, because every time you allow yourself a little more permission, every time you learn something new about your body or your desires, and every time you actually practice it, you're rewiring the shame messages you were taught. You're teaching your nervous system that you are safe, you are worthy, and you are capable of intimacy on your own terms. Okay, so now let's talk about the talk part of the model, which reminds us that none of this happens in a vacuum. You need language with yourself and with others. Talk can mean a few different things. First, there's self-talk, how to speak to yourself about your own body, your desires, your worth. If your inner dialogue is shame-based, that will block everything else. So shifting to affirming self-talk creates the foundation for growth and sex-positive, shame-free experiences. Then there's partner talk, communication with whoever you're engaging with, sexually or romantically. That might mean sharing boundaries, talking about your desires, or simply being honest when something doesn't work for you. Sometimes talk means reaching out for professional support. This is where therapy comes in. Having a trained professional hold space with you can make all the difference, especially when you're unpacking religious shame, trauma, or sexual challenges that feel overwhelming to tackle on your own. And finally, there's community talk, connecting with others who are navigating similar experiences. That might mean support groups or workshops or online communities. When you hear "me too" from others, the shame you thought was unique to you suddenly feels lighter and more manageable, Group dialogue can be just as healing as one-on-one therapy. In fact, there's some studies that show it's actually even more effective than individual therapy. There is a lot of magic and power in groups, and why I hold so many of them. So why does the PEP Talk model work? Well, because it's sex positive, it's shame reducing, and it's skills based. Instead of seeing sex as a moral test or a fixed identity, it treats sexuality as a living, evolving practice. It validates your need for pleasure and connection while giving you a concrete structure for growth. One client told me, I finally feel like I have a map instead of just stumbling in the dark. And that's exactly what I want this model to be for you. Here's how you can start using the PEP Talk model today. Pause and ask yourself, am I giving myself permission here? What do I need to give myself more permission about? Prioritize some comprehensive sexual education through a trusted book or podcast. You can always check out my growing library of resources at natashahelfer.com. Pick one new thing to explore this week, maybe a new kind of touch, or even just a new erotic thought you allow yourself to entertain. Commit to practice. That might mean talking with a partner about what worked or didn't, or journaling about how your body responded. And finally, talk about it. If you're partnered, share something. If you're solo, reflect out loud or write something. Naming things breaks shame and builds confidence. Or maybe set up an appointment with a sex therapist if you're wanting a deeper dive. So that's the breakdown of the PEP Talk model: permission, education, practice, all supported by talk. This is the foundation we'll build on throughout this PEP Talk model series, which is the next month's worth of content. I'll give you lots of concrete strategies, exercises, and conversations to help you deepen your sexual confidence and connection. And if you're coming from a background of sexual shame or religious trauma, I especially want you to know you are not broken. You just need a new blueprint. And the PEP Talk model is here to help you build it. I'd love to hear from you. What's coming up for you as I explain the PEP Talk model? Have you already been doing some of these things? How has your journey of eradicating shame taken shape? What are your wins? What are you still struggling with? And if you enjoy my content and want to go deeper, go sign up for my newsletter at natashahelfer.com. You'll get a free copy of my current download full of juicy information. And remember to ring my bell and subscribe. I give you full consent.